Welcome to Jared Scott Outdoors. This YouTube channel is dedicated to getting our youth more involved in the outdoors. To do this, I'll be out with family and friends doing all sorts of outdoor adventures. This week on Jared Scott Outdoors, I've got a show full of action as we're heading out after Idaho's 12ers. There are 9 peaks in Idaho that are above 12,000 feet elevation, and with summer coming up, this is a great time to make some plans to summit some of Idaho's 12ers for yourself. I've summited 5 of those peaks and want to show you a little from each one so that you can see what they're like and decide for yourself which one you want to hit first. I chose some because they were easier than others and some because of their notoriety, like Mount Bora, Idaho's highest peak. There are a few I haven't climbed yet because they're a bit more technical, but I still hope to bag them someday. So let's start off with what's probably one of the easiest of the 12ers to summit, Hyndman Peak. It may be one of the easier ones, but it's also one of the more enjoyable, I would say. This one is unique in that if you want to mountain bike the first couple miles of the trail, you can do that, which we opted to do. Then we stashed our bikes.
2.5 miles in. Not much further than where the trail splits. That's the magic spot to ditch the bikes. Start hiking.
The trail's about 6 miles or so long, and the peak barely making the 12,000 foot mark is at 12,009 feet. So expect it to take all day with lots of elevation gain. But there really wasn't any scary parts with exposure, so someone worried about fear of heights could probably make this peak happen.
Well, that up there is definitely the peak. My dad checked his topo maps and it was it.
It was interesting in that there would be a large flat section with a pond or two, followed by an uphill climb with another flat section on top. This pattern repeated itself several times. It actually worked out pretty well to gain some elevation and then get an easy stretch to rest your legs, and then gain elevation again, followed by an easy spot again. This trail really does have it all. It first went through the aspen trees along the stream at the beginning, climbed higher into the pines and along some beautiful ponds, and now we find ourselves in some amazing flower-filled basins. Thousands of yellow, purple, red, and white flowers. This is where the real hike begins. It's just up and up and up. Rocks, rocks, and more rocks. And the trail, well, you'll see it here and there, but overall, it's just a rock scramble.
Definitely no exposure issues here. Just a good rock scramble. The kids are plugging along, Kate especially. Looks like somebody lit a fire under him because he's just flying.
Well, Kate over there is just buzzing up. He's probably 5 minutes ahead of us, and it's not nearly as bad as Leatherman, and since I have fear of heights, I can say it, and it's not very scary.
It's different than Leatherman. It's bigger rocks, jagged rocks, but still like to slide out from under you, which makes you nervous about hikers below you. I'm finally nearly to the top. I've probably got 100 yards, and the rock is solidified quite a bit, so now it's pretty good. Kay just hollered, so I know he made it to the top. So if my wife sees this, I couldn't stop him. He just went. Luckily, this is a mountain that doesn't have exposure on it, so I've got Abby just below me a little bit, taking a little bit of break, but we're almost there. One's there, the rest of us are just about there, but the view already is spectacular, so I can't wait to get up on top.
I'm coming to give you a hug, please. God, look at the flag.
Good job!
Woo! Those guys turned around. Holy cow! And I was like, stop it. And then like turn. Woo woo! We did it! Good job.
There were a few references of Leatherman Peak, so let's show you that one now. Leatherman is known for its loose rock, and if you ever make it up that way, you'll see why. But there's some really positive things about this hike that makes it where I'd be happy to go hike it again, even though I've been up there a few times. First, the best route up is through the West Fork Canyon of the Pacimarai River, but the road getting there is terrible. Terrible. Did I say it's terrible? You definitely need a four-wheel drive vehicle with decent clearance, but once to the trailhead, it's a beautiful canyon and hike. It even has some prime fishing lakes nearby. There was one year that I took a group of scouts up here to hike up to the peak. We were able to base our camp in this beautiful canyon, which put us central to some of these lakes that we could fish, as well as hiking the peak. When summiting this peak, you could even look for fossils, which is something I like to do, and that was one added benefit to this hike. On one of our trips, we spotted a big group of rams on our way back down to camp, which is a really cool highlight. Well, we've made it up here to where we're going to camp, which is right at, well, basically, you can see up here, the foot of the trailhead, when you really start getting up there and going after Leatherman Peak. And also, we've got Pass Lake that comes up over that. So we're kind of in a split right here where we can head up to Leatherman and look for some fossils and things like that, or go up and do some fishing, which is going to be both. But first, we're finding a camping area. Leatherman is Idaho's second tallest peak, with the summit at 12,228 feet. As far as the trail goes, this is another easy one. Well, kind of. It's easy in that there's not really any exposure, but it can also be very difficult in that part of it goes up a very loose rock section that's tough to work through. If you're coming for fossils, go further than you think, further than you want. It's steep, it's nasty, but I guess everything good comes with a price, right? So if you just want the fossils, hike up to where there's somewhat of a bowl, right before it goes straight up to the peak. As far as I've noticed, that area seems to have the most fossils. However, we were going for the peak first. If you look to the east of the peak, you'll see some obvious trails through the loose rock up to the saddle on the ridge. However, we chose to go on the more solid face. You made it!
Bang!
I was worried about you.
I appreciate the caring.
There is the top right there.
Life is amazing!
Oh. Woo! As you can see, another fantastic view, even when there's smoke in the valley. So switching from Idaho's second tallest, let's go to the seventh tallest, Mount Idaho, which sits at 12,065 feet. Mount Idaho is a cool hike as you near the top, but the first few miles can be a little frustrating. That's because the first miles are through the bottom of a canyon that has a trail that comes and goes. There seems to be a bit of searching every now and then as you lose the trail and have to look for more cairns to lead the way. It's definitely one that you want to know where you're going ahead of time so that when you do lose the trail, you can just keep moving forward until you pick it up again. Once the trail leaves the bottom though, it turns into a beautiful trail with fun rock scrambles, knife edge hikes, and cool views. And overall, not one with that much exposure. Maybe a few little spots here and there, but not too bad. From here, below point 1160, it's easy to see where to go. The trail isn't obvious where you're standing, but you can see it on the other side of the saddle. So just work towards it, and sure enough, a trail will materialize. The rock's pretty loose underfoot, but it's really not too big a deal just to work through. Up until now, we were still using our walking sticks. However, now that Class 3 rock scramble I mentioned was in front of us. Since we would need our hands more than the walking sticks, we stashed them in the rocks along the side of the trail. This would be the toughest part of the climb as far as difficulty goes. The dangerous part was actually not exposure to big falls. Rather, it was the danger of rolling rocks as there was so much loose rock we had to work through. We had to be very aware of where everyone else was and be as careful as possible as far as dislodging any rocks that might hit another one of us. In the beginning, we made sure everybody kind of spread out and wasn't directly above or below each other in case rocks got dislodged. As we got further up, one of the best solutions I had was to keep everybody as close as possible to each other. That way any rocks accidentally dislodged didn't have time to get enough speed to injure us. We still moved some rocks, but they weren't going fast yet until they got past us. And then sure enough, there were some that really got moving. Thankfully, there were no other hikers below us that we had to worry about.
It's actually turned out to be way fun. Like, I've enjoyed it a lot more than Leatherman or whatever. I was just doing it out of complete grit because I was terrified and just had to get up there. This one's like, oh, I kind of want to keep going. It's like fun.
Hey, Cater.
Oh, hi. Took you guys long enough.
Yeah, ha ha ha.
Hey, if you want to maybe wait, I'd have been fine. That one's Leatherman right there.
And there it is.
All right, earlier I showed you a few of Idaho's 12ers, some of the 9 peaks that are over 12,000 feet. The first ones were those with pretty limited exposure. Now let me show you a couple with a little more of that fear factor because the exposure level goes up a bit. Let's start off with Idaho's most well-known peak, Mount Borah. The summit of Mount Borah peaks out at 12,662 feet. It's probably safe to assume that this is the most popular peak trail in Idaho. The trail does have a section with some exposure, and it's appropriately called Chicken Out Ridge, because as the name implies, those that are afraid of heights often chicken out at this point. I've taken a few groups up this trail over the years, and everyone has always been able to get over their fears and get past this hard spot. But I have seen other hikers call it quits at this point as well, which has got to be frustrating for those hikers because it takes a lot of effort just to get to this point. Once past Chicken Out Ridge, it's really just a rock scramble the rest of the way to the top, where those that make it can boast of being on top of Idaho's highest peak. This last half mile of the trail really was tough. It's very steep, and the trail just goes right up the mountain. Lots of loose rock on the trail makes it easy to slip if you're not careful, but more than anything, it's just so steep that you really have to pace yourself. Finally, with the tough climb behind us, our group one by one summited Mount Borah, claiming at least for a moment to be the highest person in all of Idaho.
We made it.
Good job.
So that's the most popular peak in Idaho to summit. But what about a much less popular, but for me, the most memorable, Diamond Peak, the 4th highest peak in Idaho, reaching 12,197 feet. This is one of my favorite ones because it's the one peak I somehow talked my wife into summiting with me, and she is deathly afraid of heights. Diamond Peak is not for the faint of heart, as it does have some pretty exposed areas. I'm not sure if it's better or worse than Mount Borah's Chicken Out Ridge, but it sure seemed just as bad. I 100% underestimated this mountain when I invited Candace to come along with me, and to be honest, I'm surprised she went.
Apparently Jared says we're leaving these sticks here now. I don't know how I feel about that. That we're gonna be crawling now.
So just remember, if you slip, you just slip to there.
I'm really scared.
So it's not like you're gonna fall down the mountain. You want me to stay behind you?
Yeah.
And if you're not good with it, you don't have to do it.
While I had known it was a possibility, at this point I really started to come to grasp with the likelihood of Candace not being able to summit the hike. It was too bad. She'd come within a half mile of the peak and was already over 11,000 feet high. She decided to keep going, but as I looked ahead, it just looked like it got worse.
Oh.
Part of the problem was that instead of having a steady incline up to the peak, it was fairly jagged, which just created lots of very steep climbs and several spots where we had to side hill the ridge to get around a point that was too steep to climb.
Wow.
What in the heck have you got me to? Honestly, way out of my element. Way out of my element.
Now I knew it was over. This had just turned into rock climbing and we were still a long ways from the top. As a last-ditch effort, I decided to climb up and see what it looked like beyond this point. Unless I was wrong and the jagged nature of this ridge smoothed out, this hike was over. While I could hope, in reality, however, I doubted it would improve. Sure enough, it was just more of the same. In fact, it even looked worse up ahead.
That's the top?
And no, it wasn't even close to the top. I don't know what got into her, but Candace decided to make the climb up to me. Before this moment, I would have bet money she wouldn't even consider climbing anything like this. So you can imagine my surprise. Of course, as I looked ahead, I knew she would reconsider when she got to the top and saw that it just didn't end and nearly looked impossible. Candace has a hard time just driving roads that have a steep slope, and this was so much worse than anything like that. I really couldn't believe she was still moving forward and was still in pretty good spirits as well. Even all these years later, I'm still amazed she finished the hike. She just put one foot in front of the other and pushed all the way to the top.
I didn't think Candace would make it up here. Once we got down there, it started getting into some pretty steep stuff. I didn't think there was any way. She just kept going 50 yards at a time.
I just had to put my head down and just look at the rocks and one hand in front of the other. There was times I was hugging those rocks, but we're making it.
We're gonna make it. I'll let Candace lead the way and we'll get up there and summit this peak.
As we hiked the last part up to the summit, I really was amazed that in the end, we had made it all the way to the top. Had I known what this hike would have been like, I would have never brought Candace along with me. As it turned out, however, she was able to accomplish something truly amazing that few people ever do.
We're here!
Well, that's going to wrap it up for now. I hope that gave you a few ideas of some peaks that you can bag yourself this upcoming summer. These episodes can't be done without your help. You know the drill. Please make some comments, like, and subscribe, and I'll keep working on more videos.